Let's start off with the negative side, giving a summary in less than 5 minutes. Who would like to take over?
I will. Okay, first, we would like to summarize with our two main points. First, in order to make the shift from April to September, a lot of paperwork will be necessary and laws will need to be changed. And I think it will be a very difficult process. And I know the affirmative team said that, yeah, we have to embrace those changes, but I think there are a lot of obstacles to change them. And I don't, even if we accept those changes, it won't necessarily be too easy. And another one is how the affirmative team initially mentioned gradually shifting the year. Yes, like from 1 year, it would be a month. And then they would finally change it to September. But I think, yeah, as mentioned earlier, it's gonna add a lot of confusion. So I think a gradual change is not wise.
So as Toru-san pointed out, there are many drawbacks in changing academic year from April to September. The main point, one of the important points they pointed out was to address the corona situation. But on the other hand, they said that they will implement step by step. In my understanding, their argument is self-contradicting. That's my first point. The second point, we agree that it's important to increase the number of students study abroad. But as we presented in the first argument, we have less burdensome alternative make universities' curricula more flexible. We can achieve that goal, less burdensome alternative. So we should take that. And that we understand that the affirmative side showed some statistic that number of students study abroad is, for example, maybe 10,000 per year, but 10,000 per year is not a majority, it's minority. We assume that there are maybe 7 million students from first grade of high school to the senior of university. So 100,000 is minority. We shouldn't put such burden on majority for the benefit of such minority students.
This is the affirmative side. We found a great merits in adopting new academic year starting from September. And here are our main reasons. One, there is the system will provide great opportunities for many Japanese students to study abroad, as well as to receiving foreign students from abroad. So, which is our great merit to have this kind of system. And secondly, there are well, for the transaction, there might be some problems like teachers or tuitions, but we can cover it by the government subsidies, or the number of teachers are not decreasing. So we might cover these problems, and the school could provide new scholarship system and so on. And also we can use the power of technology. We can have the classes by online. And for this year, we already have missed almost half a year, almost 3 or 4 months. So we can cover those delays. Now, we think that now is the best chance to change this system.
Yes, let me add something. And as for the recruitment, I think the advantages will outweigh the disadvantages by changing academic year from April to September, because vast majority of students who want to study abroad, is from the UK and the US. They studied in the universities where academic year starts from September. It means when we think that they have better quality of education. And after they return to Japan, if academic year starts from April, some company do not recruit them because they recruit new graduates on April. But if we set on September, the company have more chance to hire better quality of student who studied abroad. And Koji-san said that the number of people who study abroad are minority. But as Keita-san mentioned, the number of people who study abroad is increasing. In addition, who want to study in Japan is increasing. It means that now is minority, but in the future, the number of students who will get the benefit by shifting academic year from April to September will increase in the future.
Let's ask judges what they thought. Any thoughts? And you can discuss what you have discussed in the group as well.
Okay, so I will say my opinion. So thank you for your hard work. It was very enjoyable discussion. I agree with the opposite team, and I paid attention to 2 points. The first one is financial pressure. Financial pressure on the home is really important. The financial burden of dual-income families with children was heavy during the coronavirus. So it is difficult for such financial burden to continue without assistance. And second one is about foreign abroad students. I paid attention to the increase of international students in Asia, but as the negative side said, Singapore, Australia, and other countries are not start from September. As far as I think, education of these countries are global standard. So September admission is not necessary. Additionally, domestic student is bigger than the foreign student. Also, affirmative side mentioned about recruiting good staff. Under the influence of coronavirus, most of people understood online discussion possibility. Is the September admission really important for good researcher? If the university wants to hire outstanding researcher, why not hire them at any time? So, in conclusion, I vote negative team.
Yeah, so I vote negative side because the negative side has a good aspect of the feasibility to change the system. So yeah, I really understand changing has a very big burden and workload. So negative side explain it, and it is based on the some of the figures and feasibility. So it is very concreted statement.
It seems like, I mean, just listening to the whole thing, it seems like that there is a little bit of room to improve when you define the terms. There seems to be a little bit of a confusion as to what do we mean, you know, what year are we talking about? And I didn't, you know, the statement is quite vague. It's general. So are we talking about universities? Are we talking about schools or what? So as I mentioned at the beginning, affirmative side can define the terms in the way that they want the debate to go on. So they had this freedom to do it, and it wasn't very clear what they meant. And I think there has been a little bit of question and answers and sort of a confusion exchange due to, are we talking about grade school? Are we talking about university? Are we talking about this year? Are we talking about next year or what kind of things? And I think the responsibility lies with the affirmative side, and they do have the freedom to define. And that way, I mean, I realize we're talking about the much bigger issues of education and shifting and so forth. But for the debate as such, it's much better to clearly define and then go from there, rather than sort of argue back and forth. What do we mean by this, that kind of things. So that's how I felt. And some suggestions as to the future debate. I mean, if you're affirmative side, you can define and clearly define the terms in your own way. And then build like 3 important reasons why you are supporting this particular definition or this particular statement, rather than going all over the place. And just clearly and quite simple. And that way you can go back and forth. And so I thought that the negative side did sort of argue against the affirmative side in the sense of, okay, you didn't quite clearly define this or that. So there's a little bit of an what do you call it? I think you used the term something that you were not quite clear in terms of what you were talking about. I think particularly in the year. So that's part of the problem. And I realized that we're talking about much bigger issues of educational system. And is this going to be a good trigger for a major reformation and so forth, which is a very good topic for discussion, for the future discussion. But as for the debate per se, I think it's better to clearly define and pick up like clean argument rather than trying to go all over the place. And so I think what I would suggest is that, okay, you think about, okay, this is the definition. These are the reasons that I think. And after going through a lot of things with the information, you go back and say, okay, what are the main points that we're trying to argue, and go from there. Because as you look for all the information, the things get a little confusing. And the same thing was true with the report or the any column or any paper. You know, you do a lot of digging of the information, and in the process, the argument or your message gets a little bit confusing. So what I would do is just before you make an argument or before the deadline, a few days before the deadline, you say, okay, now that I know all these things, what is my conclusion? What is my message? And go from there rather than going through the whole thing that you have gone through. And then you can crystallize your message much clearer. And that way, I think the other party or the audience will have a much better understanding of what you are trying to say. So that's something that I would try to do. And another very good way of doing it is that since, like the initial remarks, you are given 7 minutes. So I understand that there are more members in the team. So you're not the only one that is going to make an argument taking 7 minutes. But if I were you, I would try to rehearse my initial argument using the video or using the tape. That way you can hear whether your message is clear and whether your definition is clear, whether your argument is logical or not. And that part can be done, can be prepared in advance. The discussion part is something that you just kind of have to think on the spot. So that's a little bit different story. But that's what is what I recommend. As a matter of fact, I am doing this 5-minute brief speech every day. And that's the first thing in the morning. And I just started it. I started before, but I decided to resume. You don't talk to anybody. You may communicate by email and other things, but you really do not speak. And I think speaking does have a little bit of a comforting benefit. So I said, well, why don't I do 5-minute speech, impromptu speech on any topic in English. And that way I can just and I videotape, and I tape it, it's so just 5 minutes. And then I watch it afterwards and say, is it clear or is it not? And particularly for the second language like English, the more often you practice, the better. So if you do it like once a week, there's just no way that you're going to be able to speak fluently, or you are able to speak what you want to say clearly. So that's something that you might want to try. And this is like an exercise, workout. If you do it every day or every other day, then you become much better as you practice. Because this is essentially it's essentially a skill workout.